Hello and welcome. It's easy to forget just how important, valuable and necessary good doctors are. That is, until you fall ill. Think about this. A doctor enters our life right from the time we're in the womb. Doctors help us stay healthy. They are by our side through illness, disease, surgery and recovery. They help us live longer and live better. And so today we want to put the spotlight on hardworking doctors. We've invited doctors from different fields to join us on this platform. A platform to celebrate, recognize and appreciate the long hours they work, their compassion and the effort they put into practicing medicine. And we have a great panel of highly accomplished doctors. We have, they're quite intimidating, I might just admit. Many Padma Shri awardees here whose time is valuable, I understand that, so let's get down to it right away. Dr. Das, as a child, we are all asked, I remember being asked, Beta, what do you want to be when you grow up? My grandmother wanted me to be a doctor and I have sorely disappointed her. But on a more serious note, the most admired profession is that of being a doctor, which is why it's not easy to become one.
Yeah, you are absolutely correct. From the very beginning till today, the entering medical profession has been tough. You have the qualifying exam, then you have to appear multiple entrance tests. Qualifying entrance tests are very tough, and in single mark they will be hanging about 10 people.
Yes.
See how competitive it is. And I remember after finishing my +2, we had to join coaching classes, which is grueling from early morning to late evening. I mean 4 o'clock early morning it will start, late evening it will finish, and every day multiple practice exams that helped us. But that is the grueling competition we have. I'll give the current example. We have this year 15.9 lakh candidates appeared for about 64,000 seats. It is 14% up than the last year's, and every year it is going up. Just see the demand for the course, and it is very, very competitive. Not only at the level of MBBS, at the level of post graduation, even for the DMMCH, for the super specialization. At every level there is an exam, national exam, you have to conquer it, following that account selling. So it is very tough to get into it.
And then MBBS is also acknowledged as one of the toughest courses in the world, and it's just a start. Dr. Wangmu, you did your MBBS in 1976, which is a 5-year course.
Yes.
Then MD in 1981, then your DM in 1984. So all in all, this is what, 15 years that you have been studying.
So I will tell you one thing, definitely what Dr. Das said, it is true. It is not when you enter the MBBS, which is very tough, the life starts from there. You know, you don't compare as a competitive sprint race, it's a long marathon.
Marathon, yeah.
And you start learning the intricacies of the human body, the complex anatomy, the physiology, the various system of the body. And the story doesn't end here. The moment you get the coveted degree of MBBS, you strive hard and work hard to go into become a postgraduate and a super specialization. And during the entire career, you have to put on a lot of study hours, lot of duty hours away from your family, and that goes in a long way to become a doctor. It takes almost 12+ years, and you have to put a lot of hard work. A sheer commitment, hard work and motivation will overcome all the challenges during a medical career.
Dr. Par, tell us, if you can explain to us, is the intensity the same for all different fields, whether let's say cardiology or gynecology, etc.? Is it equally grueling?
Let me start and change the subject a little bit. When I was a child in 1970s, we had this nuclear blast in India. So I wanted to be a nuclear scientist. And my dad said, "Are you nuts? Are you crazy? We are 3 generations of business people, engineers. We have not had a doctor. I don't want you to be part of somebody which destroys life. I want you to be a doctor." So I was forced to become a doctor. Having said that, when I look back, that was the best decision my dad made. And I became a cardiologist. Now to answer your question, I truly believe all specialties of medicine are reasonably equally intensive for that particular doctor. At the end, there's a life of a patient in a different way in the hands of the doctor. So they are all equally intensive. Only difference is some of us work much longer hours like cardiologists, critical care medicine, whereas dermatologist, ophthalmologist may work lesser hours.
Yeah.
But still it's an organ they are dealing with, and any organ which is not working well for that particular person is still a distress. So the doctor is always under stress to make sure that patient does well.
That's true. And you made a difference. Every
And we
day
made
of
a
your life
difference.
is making a difference.
Absolutely.
But it doesn't end, does it, Dr. Sharma, that you're a constant, you're a lifelong student then, because technologies keep changing and you've got to keep being on your toes.
Yeah, absolutely right. Even after 12 years of our making of a doctor, we remain a student because medical science is rapidly changing.
Yes.
Technology is advancing, particularly in field of medicine, and we have to cope up with the speed of that. And you find that so many things are changing very rapidly, like new drugs are coming in. Every another year you will have change in guidelines. You have
Yes.
so many trials going on, and you are looking into that particular disease very carefully, and so many multiple risk factors are there, and you have to look into all those risk factors, how they influence our you can say disease process, and then interaction of drugs on those risk factors, and how we can prolong our patient's life, and a quality of life will be better with these medications and with these interactions. So we remain student, and we keep on learning with so many large number of medical journals, and ultimately we remain student, and we also remain teacher, because we teach our patients, we also teach our junior doctors. So once you are a good student, only then you will be a good teacher.
And does this help keep you young, you feel?
Yeah, absolutely right. So we remain young, and we keep ourselves among good friends of young generation, and we find them as we are as young as those people are.
So medicine really is a lifestyle choice. It's not just a career choice. Dr. Mohan, you know, you miss family, you miss friends, you miss the important occasions, the birthdays, the anniversaries, you're late for most things. You know, we all grew up on the staple of watching ER, and you see George Clooney as a doctor, and it's all glamorized and it sounds so great, and he's on this date with this woman he's really been interested in, and the phone rings and he has to leave and go. But what is the reality like? Explain to us.
I'm lucky because I was married. Unfortunately, I lost her a few years ago, but my wife was my classmate from college, and so I had a wife as a doctor, and therefore that was one advantage, because she really understood the difficulties of a doctor, because she was going through it herself. But to answer your question, yes, I think that's why the medical profession is known as the noble profession. It's the noblest of all professions, in my humble opinion. The reason is that even a teacher may not be disturbed in the middle of the night, whereas a doctor is on duty 24 hours of the day. We'd never switch off our cell phones, except perhaps in a session like this. But otherwise, yeah, we have switched it off now. But otherwise, it is always on. And so at any time of the day or night, if we get a call, and if it's my daughter's birthday, but there is somebody admitted in an intensive care unit, I think even my daughter will understand that that's very important.
I'll go get her.
No, it's fine.
Enjoy your baby's first monsoon while Baby Sebamed protects their skin from germs and fungal infections. Baby Sebamed, the best protection from day one.
How many of you are married to doctors? whose spouses are doctors. Wow. Dr. Bhagwat, can you maybe come in on this? Is that because obviously it's so stressful? We've talked about how much time you spend studying, how much time in the day you spend in the program, in the course. So is this only natural that you will find a partner, an equal, while you're practicing medicine?
Yeah. Actually, family plays an extremely important role in whatever you do and achieve as a doctor. My wife is a doctor. She was my classmate too. My great-grandfather was a doctor, my father was a doctor, and my daughter is also a doctor. So it's kind of a family of doctors. So it plays a great role. First of all, when you're children, you have people around who can act as your role models, like your father or somebody, and it's an inspiration for you to become a doctor. That's one important thing. The second important thing is that the family plays role that the family plays is to understand you and to give you mental and psychological support. And when you have your spouse as a doctor, they can better understand the problems, the day-to-day issues that the doctors face. Fortunately, my wife is a doctor, and she was kind enough to take a back seat in her career to help me in my career. So that's really an important thing. Actually, it's people say that you should not bring home the worries from your workplace, but that doesn't. It's easy to say, but doesn't happen in real practice. There is a sick patient in the hospital. There are some issues with the family of the patient which you are dealing with, and it always comes to some extent with you.
And you're thinking about it also possibly.
And you're thinking about it. And if you have a family which who members understand this, it becomes real easy, and it becomes easy to cope up with these issues.
Any of you not married to doctors? All right, Dr. Joshi, what has that experience been like? Was she sure, your wife, what she was getting into when she agreed to marry you? That's a loaded question.
That she didn't know what she was getting into, and so it's very difficult.
Yeah.
And it's a challenge, but I think people are always supportive, and she supported me all throughout.
There was somebody else who's not married to a doctor.
Yeah,
Dr.
I
Das.
must tell you that I'm married to a professor of psychology. She's a professor of psychology.
Oh.
and it works out very well. I personally believe if I give a vitamin B complex tablet to her for a sickness, she's very obliged. And the other thing, we have different interests in life. She's a singer, and she's also a dancer too. So it gives a different dimension to life.
Dr. Chandra, what about you? Is it easier than spouses are equal? But either ways, whether you're married to a doctor or not, in order for a doctor to succeed, you have to have a supportive partner and also an equal partner.
Yeah, I totally agree that you need to have a supportive partner, because medicine is a very, very intense, I must say, it is a very time consuming, it takes too much of effort, energy, time. So you need somebody who understands you. Whether it is a doctor or not, I cannot give you a comparison, because I only have one wife and she is a doctor. So I can only compare the experiences. But I can tell you, being a doctor, it is easy, supposedly, and she understands what it means, what I'm doing there. Although a wife is a wife. So although she is a doctor, but she needs our time, and the family needs the time. But let me tell you, the spouses are really supportive, even if they are non-doctor or a doctor. The support from the family is very, very important. The children have to grow up. You are still struggling in your career. You are growing up, spending so much time. So somebody has to be at home.
Yeah.
And my wife actually took care of my children, my home, and everything. So it was fine for me. Perfect.
We're so glad, Namita, we're really glad you're here today, because maybe if you can come in here and you please be honest, be candid. What is it like? Because for women, of course, we know we take up more of the burden, and then the men, of course, there's this, this profession that everybody looks up to, and then he's a doctor, and the women often have to take a back seat.
Being in the same profession, I think I can understand him better. So I never feel like he should. I never feel like I'm neglecting. He's neglecting me or anything, or he's more in his profession.
What about your kids? What is like for them, and would you encourage them to be doctors?
Actually, I never asked him or told them what to do. They chose their career, whatever they want.
Then, Dr. Shukla, please please come in here, please explain to me then, if it's so hard, why should people go in to become doctors? Like you're saying, there's so many other options right now. So why should one aspire to be a doctor?
There are 2-3 issues. I mean, if I look at myself, I have done endocrinology for last 25 years. I got many things from life, lot of fame, lot of respect from the society, and lot of love. Now if somebody wants to be endocrinologist, it will take 15 plus years. I think all of my colleagues would agree.
Really?
The best part I could see in the profession is pleasure of healing, which is, I believe, not in many professions. When unconscious patient becomes conscious, it is, I mean, I can't explain the pain, you can feel it. I mean, I love my doctor, who treated me, and every time I think I need to see Dr. Kakkar. So it's the way things go. But looking those who are aspiring, it is definitely tough. And that's why my son, he's 25, 26 years old, he looked at us and said, no, it's not very charming. I'll not be able to spend that much of time. Now he spends 12 or 13 hours in work. And he says, I'm working as much as you are. Then I said, why didn't you become a doctor? So this is the way life goes. It is, I think, one life, it is into everybody's wish, what you want to be.
And quality of time that you put in, at least what you get out of it is much more, because we're all working as hard. But Dr. Prashanthi, please come in here. You are a woman doctor. Why should one aspire to be a doctor? Because especially for women, there's children, the biological clock. Now we're here, doctors saying that it's going to take more than 15 years if you want to go into this profession and take it up professionally. Why should one aspire to be a doctor?
For me to become a doctor, my mother is a role model. So since my childhood, by seeing my mother, so I thought I should become a doctor. Since childhood, she used to tell to me to do service to the patients. That was the motto for her, and she trained us and tuned us. But after giving birth to 2 children, I understood that being a woman doctor, playing a role of a good mother, good wife, daughter, daughter-in-law, it's becoming a Herculean task to balance between the personal life and the professional life, only because of my husband and understanding children.
Dr. Anjana, in the light of so many lucrative professions, what motivated you to join this?
Well, in my opinion, I think medicine is the noblest of all professions. For me, I think it started really young. Both my parents are doctors. My father is Dr. V. Mohan, who's on this panel, and my mother was the late Dr. Rema Mohan, who was an ophthalmologist. So right from a very young age, I saw them practicing medicine, healing people, and for me, I don't think there was any choice in the matter. I knew this was it for me.
These are inspiring stories. So, Dr. Joshi, talking about children, I know that your kids didn't go into the same profession, correct?
I'm a rebel of this lot because neither of my family members are into medicine. So I'm like an outlier.
Are you the first in your family?
Yes.
So they must love you. You must be the most favored child.
So, no. So during our time, probably there were only 2 professions, medicine or engineering. And I was intending to be an aeronautical engineer, which I got. But it was my mother who was related to healthcare profession.
Okay.
And she was a nurse. And I personally felt that touching human lives make a difference. So one of my closest friends was doing a survey to get an extra point, which is a community service. And that's where I realized that rather than having inanimate machines, human lives make a difference. But as I said, I was a rebel, and my parents supported me all throughout. And my both children, my both girls, they decided, one decided to be a scientist, she's pursuing a PhD in US, other one is becoming a designer, because they found that dad's a little crazy and he works too much. I loved doing medicine because you can serve, you can share, you can care, you can touch human lives. As Dr. Shukla was saying, that you can really make a difference in people's lives.
Okay, let's talk about something that I'm sure the audience is thinking about also, yes, it is a calling, it's a personal calling, but there's also a calculated financial risk. A lot of parents want their kids to be doctors because they think it will pay off financially.
Oh, it could be the other way around. It's not easy to start a practice on your own and survive in this cutthroat world. And I still encourage people to join medicine. And as Dr. Das said, the graph is still going up, because this is the only profession which allows not only care, but education and research in human beings. Human body is totally different. You know, now people may create artificial intelligence, they may try computers replacing doctors, but still today it is a very noble profession and a very humble profession. and a very gratifying profession.
I think Dr. Shukla has really made a very important point, because today in all professions, including mine, we spend so many hours at work, away from family, away from kids, that at least if you're a doctor, at the end of the day you come home knowing that you've done something valuable, you've done something important, you've saved a life, you've made a difference in the world. But talking about it being a noble profession, I want to bring in Dr. Sarda, Archana Sarda. You were a young practitioner in Aurangabad, where you were disturbed by the fact that it seems you couldn't find an adult who had type 1 diabetes, that children were basically not making it to adulthood in the area where you were. So you did something about it.
Yes, I started as a diabetologist in Aurangabad, and when I started working, I only saw adults with type 2 diabetes, and I said, where are all the type 1s? And when we started hunting, it seems that they had all just died, or they were stunted, or they had chronic complications, and that sort of clicked that why is this happening? And when we went further, we found that there was no support system in the entire Marathwada region, because Marathwada region is the most backward part of Maharashtra. And we decided to do something about it. And initially it was just supporting someone who came in free. Then we realized that wasn't enough. They needed education. And when we realized that wasn't enough, we needed to reach out. And that wasn't enough, they needed free medicine. So it became a journey. And from one child, today we are now supporting 650 children. Wow. And that needed community care, education, schools, doctor awareness. So something which started as a simple observation just became a mission. And as we were talking about what makes you a doctor, this is the most beautiful aspect. I mean, it's its own reward. Every moment you're rewarded. Imagine a child coming to you and their parents saying, we are seeing him smiling for the first time. He's laughing today for the first time. You're seeing a child bloom in your front of your eyes. I mean, what could be more rewarding than that? Not any money in the world, not any name in the world. So the most beautiful part is whether you're in it willingly or non-willingly, but it's definitely its own reward. Every moment is a beauty by itself.
I'll go get her.
No, it's fine.
Enjoy your baby's first monsoon while Baby Sebamed protects their skin from germs and fungal infections. Baby Sebamed, the best protection from day one.
Dr. Pence, you are the author of The Practical Management of Diabetes and Diabetes Food. Now, take us through the importance of research, one, constantly being on top of that, and also preventive. A lot of this sounds like preventive. Before we have to come to you big name doctors and take your time and take out appointments with you, the role of preventive medicine also.
I have specialized mainly in diabetic food, and
yes,
what you were mentioning about the book, and the only way to prevent that was to create diabetic food care awareness among patients as well as doctors. It was missing in our country.
Why among doctors also?
Because even doctors were ignorant about diabetic foot disease, and they used to neglect it for lack of awareness. So first thing I did was to arrange a national level podiatry workshop in Nagpur, and then hundreds of workshops were conducted all over the country, and I wrote a big monogram on diabetic foot, which became hugely popular. Then I entered into step-by-step foot care project, and we started 100 foot clinics in India, and I am a founder of Diabetic Foot Society of India, yes, and chairman of diabetes education, foot education program for last 5 years, and this has been very gratifying, because the good news is leg amputations have gone down and diabetic foot care awareness among patients as well as doctors and primary care physicians has gone up.
Yeah, but it's not only about saving lives, it's also about quality of life. That's what you've done. Dr. Anjana, you've been a part of many research projects in diabetes. What are the research needs for a country like India when it comes to diabetes?
I think in the current time, what India really needs is doctor researchers. And again, what do I mean by that? Well, when we do MBBS, when we do MD, DM, etc., we're trained to treat patients, we're trained medically, yes. But the future is always changing. And we need research to come in most of the time to bring in new practices, new technology, new principles and new treatments into our treatment, the everyday practice that we do. So I would say it is very, very essential for all doctors to have an element of research also in their clinical practice, even if it is something small, to observe things, to try and learn how to do research methodology correctly. And if they can do something early on itself and build a career around being a doctor as well as a researcher, I think that would be very, very useful for India itself in the future.
Dr. Mohan, then please come in here. Medical research versus practicing medicine. You've spent a lot of time, there's a lot in your resume about research that you've done. What is one more important than the other, or is one more satisfying than the other?
I've had a very lucky, I was extremely lucky, because I started working with my father on diabetes from the day I joined medical school, because my father was also a diabetes specialist. So I started doing research at the age of 18, and so that the research bug kind of bit me quite early in my life, and that's what's kept me going all these years. I feel that today's research is tomorrow's practice.
Yeah.
So research helps you to understand the future, what is coming. Otherwise, what happens is that you start getting outdated. You have learned something today, 2019, it looks very sexy, it looks very modern, and then after that, in 2024, it's all gone. There's new research come in. So a good researcher, of course, there are many good researchers who are not good clinicians, and there are many good clinicians who don't do research at all, but we can kind of combine both and balance both out. You become a very smart clinician, because being a researcher, you know the latest things which can be applied tomorrow in practice, and being a clinician, you know what research needs to be done. So I think every doctor should take some interest in research, and if we want, and the number of medical doctors who actually do research or even understand research is very, very small, and the reason for that is they start too late. After they finish their MD or DM, and then after they've settled down, now it's too late, you don't understand what research is all about. So I am one who believes that right from the undergraduate medical days, the medical doctors who are doing MBBS course should be given 5 months, 6 months into research, so that they begin to understand. So at least a small proportion of the doctors will then turn out to be researchers. And I think it's extremely important that we keep innovating and finding new ways of diagnosing and treating diseases.
Okay. I want to talk about one issue that I think we would be at fault if we didn't address. All of you work in private hospitals, so I want to talk about the issue of
government hospital.
Fantastic, Dr. Das. So
public and private both.
Okay, public and private both. Okay, so the one big criticism, of course, about doctors in India is that this is the perception, and it may, of course, it's wrong, because we have many government hospitals running around the country, is that doctors want to go work in private hospitals. Can we talk a little bit about the care, the service, the requirement, perhaps much more pressure when you work in a government hospital compared to private hospital? Dr. Das, you work currently also in a government hospital.
I've just still last 2 years I was in JIPMER, which is purely government hospital. The issues that you have highlighted very important. Number one, we have a large load of patients.
Yes.
At the same time, we also have number of doctors to take care of them, and there is a little bit of practicing fatigue at the end of the day, but it is surmountable. The number two, skill comes through practice.
Yes.
The skill of your hand, heart and head becomes very fine tuned when it's a large number of patients. Most important thing, that we do not have to go to slums. The slums come to us for treatment. So we are very satisfied. And the most important issue is that you can today treat in the government hospitals a patient appropriately with various schemes that we have. Every government has scheme, Government of India has a scheme, we have got National Arogya Nidhi. I mean, I can count all of them, many schemes which can provide them money for the state of art care. But the only thing that is required in a private hospital is the tenacity of purpose and try to do the best you can do. Mohan did mention about the research. I must tell you that the government hospital gives you a good mix of teaching, patient care and research, and you can be one in all. I mean, the issue is that the medical care improves by research. There are innumerable diseases and there are unsurmountable problems, but the medical research finds many ways of treating it, and you can apply them if they are appropriate, cost effective in the government hospitals. And you know, that also one part is teaching. In government hospitals you get students, and in JIPMER and all that you get best of the students. Yes. And you know, that is a great passion when there are a large number of patients to teach this subject and to inculcate in them the clinical knowledge. And also you would rely less on the very sophisticated investigations like MRI, we may not be able to do for all the patients. Therefore, clinical skill improves, you become a good clinician.
So, clinical skill.
I would like to add by saying that I don't think they're really competitive to each other, they are complementary to each other. So, it's not that government versus private. There are a lot of doctors who work in the government who are also allowed private practice, so they do both. And then the private sector also is not just a corporate body as everybody thinks. There are a lot of private institutions which are NGOs, which are charitable in nature, which are missionary hospitals in nature. So, I think they broadly complement each other. It's in the urban areas where the private sector tends to dominate. As far as rural areas concerned, it's almost completely government.
And have you all had to work, you all have had to work in a rural area at some point over your
everybody goes through that.
So, can someone talk about that, you know, the patient load, the resource crunches Dr. Das talks about?
What I would say, all of us, whether we are working in government or private, I think we have to do for our country, for India. And this is what we are for.
Dr. Chandra, is that worrying?
No. In fact, you know, there is a different perspective to this private and government thing. As he already mentioned, there is no competition. This is a very, very important pillar. The private medical system in India is an important pillar, and what it has done in the last 25 years is changed the whole landscape. My father went for an angioplasty outside the country, that was 30 years back. Now today, and I went for training for angioplasty to a different country, and many of our colleagues did that earlier. Today, I am in a private sector, but what we do is we do quality medicine. And today, nobody, not even the biggest bureaucrat or the industrialist, has to go for a heart treatment at least outside India. And a large number of patients are coming from various countries to get treated, for heart diseases. So that is a big change which has happened, and this is a partnership of all doctors. I'm not saying private, it's a private, government, everywhere things have gone up, but it has made a change. So that's the big change.
Dr. Bhagwat, how do you explain that?
Just one point I would like to make, that the strength of the government hospital is quantity, volume.
Yes.
And the strength of the private sector, as Dr. Praveen said, it's quality. Now, I personally feel that in future, we need to have some kind of a private-public partnership where the education of the residents would include both these types of hospitals. And you know, it will not only help people from private sector taking advantage of the volume in government and vice versa. So I think public-private partnership is the way of the future.
Dr. Prashanthi, then Dr. Das.
In spite of strengthening of the private medical care system, what I feel is need of strengthening of primary healthcare centers in the country, because 80% of the poor people are in the rural India, they can't afford for a private healthcare system. We see one end of the spectrum, the corporate, mediocre hospitals for middle class people, but poor people still rely on the government hospitals. In spite of having so many schemes from central government and the respective state governments, if we strengthen each and every primary health center of each and every small area, mostly for the non-communicable diseases like the hypertension and diabetes, if we give good quality of the drugs for a regular lifetime basis, we can reduce the complications, the tertiary care complications can be decreased, so that we can give very good care.
Dr. Sharma, quickly, and then
So, extending the same idea, when I came from PGI Chandigarh and found out that even in our doctors, the knowledge about chronic disease like diabetes is very, very poor. So, we started doing education program not only for the patients, but also for the doctors. So, we travel all along Rajasthan in all different township and cities, and we educate our junior colleagues regarding the latest development. What we learn from, you can say, latest, we pass on to our juniors and then make them feel that they can also treat their patient effectively.
Yes.
We need to rekindle the family doctor, and I think we need to respect our MBBS. For me, my doctor, my family doctor who's no more, I loved him. Whatever he told me, I did. So that if we resurrect that institution, then this private and public thing will go away. We need to empower our primary care doctors, our family doctors. We need to get that institution back.
I believe that the future of newer generation is terrific. I don't think I look back and say that my golden days, the golden days are yet to come. So the children of future who want to be doctors, I don't believe there's going to be more competition. There'll be more opportunity. So the audience who are listening, and if your children want to be doctor, like Dr. Joshi mentioned, go all out, make them doctors at MBBS, MD, DM. I don't think we need to worry at all. I'm very positive. As last 200, 300 years, if you go back, future is going to be much, much better.
My father was a family doctor and practiced for 50 long years. Even today, some of these relatives, they come to me and remember my father. He died some 10 years ago. But the system of family doctors has disappeared. Let me tell you, no MBBS doctor is entering into family practice, and all our patients are now bypassing family doctor and directly going to super specialist, which is a wrong notion, because even if they go for a headache or mild stomach, the super specialist has to rule out all the causes. So the expenses become huge. It's not his fault.
So this is a
So
critical
we are
thing.
bypassing family doctor.
Charles
which is
Dickens
wrong.
said, we are in best of times, and I would be a pop, but we are in worst of times.
Correct.
And the worst times are because we need to resurrect this whole institution of family doctors.
Yes.
And if the family doctor gives you that human touch, and we repose that faith and trust, I think the public perception at large would be again welcoming again. And that
Dr.
is the
Saab.
nobility of our profession.
I was just thinking about the first step itself. If a person becomes a doctor for the right reasons, because they want to, and that itself sets the pace for what is going to happen at the end. Whether you go to a government setup, you go to a private practice, you run an NGO, you go to a village, but there's so much of inner desire that you face hurdles and you try to solve them. As we started, I was just sharing that, okay, government hospitals have their limitations, but we are there to sort of complement it without blaming them. They have sheer so much of workload. They cannot sit with a patient and educate them for 2 hours. So that is something that we can take, maybe as an NGO, maybe as a doctor. So if the heart is in the right place, the reason for being doctor is right there, then the paths just come. And I know so many people we are saying not working in the rural areas, but they are. They're just unsung heroes. It's not without people, without doctors that this health is running. It's just that we don't know about them. Every time I see patients, I find they tell me stories of wonderful doctors who are there in their villages and are taking care of them. They call me up and say, what can we do for this? What can we do for that? We just have to be accessible. There are a lot of good people out there. I think they're not being talked about.
I'll go get her.
No, it's fine.
Enjoy your baby's first monsoon while Baby Sebamed protects their skin from germs and fungal infections. Baby Sebamed, the best protection from day one.
Dr. Pensy, you also work with the charitable trust, right? The Dream Trust. Your objective is adoption of poor juvenile diabetics, distribution of free insulin to the needy and the poor.
Yes. So I am running this NGO Dream Trust for last 22 years to provide free health care to these economically underprivileged children with type 1 diabetes with priority to girls. Earlier, the quality of life of these children was precarious, very poor, and the quantity of life, they didn't live more than 2 years.
As Dr. Sharda says.
And now that we are providing them free insulin and all accessories for over 2,000 children, the quality of life has improved. Now these girls lead life with pride and dignity, and their life expectancy has gone up. They are becoming doctors, nurses, teachers, all sorts of professions they are entering only because of the free health care they received from the NGO. And it's very gratifying to see these children growing and doing so well in their life, which I have seen in the earlier days, how poor the quality of life of these village children with type 1 diabetes was.
Dr. Sharda, your daughter is here with you, and you haven't, you're Soumya, you haven't gone into the same field as your mother.
So the reason is not becoming a doctor. As my mother said, my heart, I feel if I become a doctor today, because my passion lies somewhere else, I would not do justice to the field.
All right, I think that's wonderfully put, and hopefully all our kids can be as, have such a strong, solid foundation. We are going to be out of time soon, but I want to hear from you about your most gratifying experience as a doctor. Is there that one case study, that one patient, that one family whose story will always stay with you even after the longest, darkest day?
So I will tell one thing. Yeah.
Okay.
So, this is a very interesting, this is about 10, 12 years back, maybe 15 years back. A young boy was brought in, must be about 25 or so, and he was brought in the ambulance and he was being pumped. He was unconscious. There was no blood pressure, no pulse, and he was brought from somewhere nearby. And so immediately we got a call, 1 o'clock in the night. Immediately everybody rushed, and then we found that this boy is not responding. What to do? So we discussed amongst ourselves and the family. There was nobody else, and so we took a decision to do the treatment, whether he gets saved or not. And we did his angioplasty. At that time, primary angioplasty is where we do angioplasty during a heart attack when the patient is already collapsed. So there was a big chance that he may not make it, and the money will go waste, and the effort will go waste. But we said, this is a young boy, and we have to try this. And suddenly his wife came in. She was pregnant at that time. This was the first child. So we went ahead, did the angioplasty, and he woke up after 5 days. And he is still living, and his son was born after that. So I remember that.
So I can narrate one very important experience. A girl who was going to get married tomorrow. She was a type 1 diabetic. A day before, she landed up in the emergency of a hospital, unconscious, with very high sugars, 400, 500, no pulse, dehydrated, in hypotension, because she has not taken insulin for quite few days because of her marriage preparations. And imagine tomorrow is her marriage date. She landed up 6 o'clock in the evening. We started pumping IV fluids, insulin, antibiotics, and by the time in the midnight 12, she started recovering, opening her eyes and everything. And we discharged that patient early in the morning around 8 o'clock because she has to go to the parlor to get ready for her marriage ceremony. And she still remembers me, still comes to me. She has 2 children after that. But that was the time we were all worried. The parents were in shock what to do. And we made all our efforts to save her life around the clock. We were in the hospital. It was so gratifying.
I had a 2-year-old girl who was brought in a coma, almost dead. And actually a pediatric service had seen, and actually they didn't have specialists, and they said, you just take her home, she's going to die. And just as a last resort, they brought her, and she was in very deep coma and 2 years old. And after a long struggle, we were able to bring her out. And then she grew up to become such a beautiful young girl. She completed a graduation, post-graduation, became a Bharatanatyam dancer. She used to give performances on television, and then she got married. Her children have now grown up. She's 40 something now and doing extremely well. So that few hours made the difference between life and death, and that would be one of a very gratifying experience for me.
It's not the medicine that can heal the patient, it's just love.
Yeah.
So there was a girl who was being forced to commit suicide almost. The parents said, we don't want you anymore. She was type 1. The society rejected her. Yeah. They gave her a can of kerosene and a matchbox. And they said, okay, we are closing the door. You please help us out. So
because she was type 1 diabetic.
She was type 1. Nobody was marrying her brother because her sister was type 1. And she had no hope. The parents had no money. And she felt like dying. The next day when she came into my group, she said, okay, ma'am, I did not commit that just because I thought you would cry. And Udan, all the kids are going to cry. So sometimes it's not just the medicine, it's the hope that a doctor gives. It's the connect, it's the feeling that somebody cares for you. So it's way beyond medicine, it's healing more than treatment at times.
Miracles do happen.
When I was doing my residency, we used to go to these rural places for these mobile camps, and there was a patient, I may be 23, 24 years old at the time, and we treated a patient of acute myocardial infarction by giving him a clot busting drug, and that was in the middle of the night in the light of a kandil, and it was all done and forgotten. And then I completed my education, then I went to the US. I came back to my hometown after 20 years, and one day this gentleman comes back. He read the news in some newspaper, and he came back and told me that I remembered your name, I remembered you when I read this, and he was very, very grateful for whatever I had done. So these patients do remember you know, and these kind of experiences are really gratifying. I must mention here one thing, that whenever you are treating, then the experiences are too numerous to recount for for everybody. But the most important thing is when you are doing, the drama is going on in the cath lab or the operation theater, there is probably another drama which is unfolding somewhere in the family. Next day somebody is going to get married. If in few weeks somebody is going to deliver a child which is related to this patient. So I think you witness humanity at its best and sometimes at its worst when you are treating your patients.
So you heard so many.
In the beginning days of my practice, and a 13 years old girl brought to me with a history of fever and a very low platelet count. She need to be investigated, and the poor father told he already lost one child, let this child die. I don't want this child, and he went away. So we have taken the responsibility, and with my own expenses we started evaluating her, found it to be SLE, severe thrombocytopenia, and we have applied for the Prime Minister Relief Fund. We started sending her to CMC Vellore. She was in such a bad condition, not even to have rice also. So with the help of the media, we have published in the local villages, hamlets, school teachers, the shop owners have given rice to her, and we supported her. Now that girl, she completed her teacher training, she got job, she married, and she became pregnant. So that one single support from a doctor, now the entire family is after her. She is a role model in that village from a poor background, how she changed the life of the villagers and how the doctor can change the life of the village. Writing prescription alone is not sufficient. Patient doesn't need sympathy from a doctor, they want empathy from the doctor.
Well, I think that's a great positive note on which we can end this show. Thank you all. I thank you on behalf of the entire public, you and all the other doctors, like we've said, not just of course private hospitals, in government hospitals, out in our villages, in those primary healthcare centers. Thank you all for your service, and clearly not one day in a year is definitely not enough to thank doctors for their service. Thank you all for joining us on the show. We hope you enjoyed it. Bye-bye.
it's fine.
Enjoy your baby's first monsoon while Baby Sebamed protects their skin from germs and fungal infections. Baby Sebamed, the best protection from day one.